This is Ned's AFL Unpopular Opinions with Alistair Lynch, Tom Rocklfif and Dylan Leach.
People gathered, stars were born, some remain undefeated, and 6 weeks, 5 rounds in, we've only got a few days to take a breath before getting stuck back into it. So much happened in Adelaide on the weekend, and that was just off the field. But what about on the field? Gather round started a tad on the one-sided spectrum, but then it turned. We saw Brisbane take the advice of their 2 former captains on this podcast, getting the show done. Carlton and Freo turned a horrible game into a shambolic ending. The Harley Reid show was real, and it was spectacular. The Tigers and Hawks had a crack, but they couldn't quite get there. We currently have 3 undefeated sides, but not all 3 of them occupy the top spots on the ladder. Can we lock in a Giants v D's grand final? Has Connor Rosie locked in the Brownlow? Or maybe Isaac Heaney, but $13 at time of record. It's the same number as last year's winner, Lockie Neal. It's a lucky number. Of course not. We're only just up to round 5, for goodness sake. There's so much left in the marathon that is season 2024, but after opening round, Easter, gather round, and of course the mighty Neds round, we're feeling a little partied out. So it's time to have a Barocca and a Zinger box and just recover our footy hangovers and put some spring back into our steps as we go into another episode of Ned's AFL Unpopular Opinions. Hello, everyone. My name is Dylan Leach. Delighted to have your company for another week. Joining me, well, back in 1993, Sandy Roberts famously proclaimed there's a pig on the ground. But for 208 games from 2009 to 2021 for both Brisbane and Port, there was a pig in the midfield, raking up all the fantasy points. I'm talking about Tom Rocklfif. Hello, Tom.
G'day, Dylan. How are you? Recovered from gather round?
Fresh as a daisy.
Yes, I could imagine. I didn't go down, but I'm hearing some reports of you two blokes, so we'll touch on that later.
Yeah, very good. 663 goals, 306 games over 17 seasons for Fitzroy and Brisbane with a trifecta of premierships. But some punters remember him as a 2-time first goal scorer in a grand final. Alistair Lynch.
Oh, yes.
Tassie Devils power broker.
That's it, yes. Rocky was very good. You've got to get yourself on the junket.
Yeah, you have to get down there.
Man, what are you doing?
Oh, no.
Actually, I don't know, after the first year, we told you how good it was. You got to get this snout in the trough.
Yeah, I'm going to have to.
Just a
Next
little
year,
bite.
Let's lock in 2025.
But even for
Neds,
general
Neds
punters,
will fly me down, won't they?
Oh, absolutely. Neds
Perfect.
will. Neds or Triple M, depending which employer of yours is happy to have you. Hello, Ewan, if you're listening, or Tom, our respective bosses from respective places.
I'm sure I'll get down there next year.
You've got Live Golf, though. You've got to Live Golf. Are you doing Live Golf?
Yeah, Live Golf in a couple of weeks, so I'm heading down. So it's sort of a,
So talking about expenses paid by employers' junkets to sporting events is something our listeners can really relate to as well.
Yeah, that's right.
Well, you got your snout in the trough this week. You got golf coming up.
Yeah,
how
golf
good?
with Neds on Friday.
Hello, Sport Boys.
Yeah,
me, you, Jarrell Yaya, and Liam from the NRL. So me and you from the AFL show, and Liam and Jarrell from the NRL show.
Yeah, that should be interesting. A couple of invoices this week, Lynchy. It's always
Oh, that's the spirit. That's the can-do. That's the spirit.
If you can whack in a couple invoices, if you can double bill, that's really good.
Again, the relatable content the average punter can really relate to when we talk about junkets and double invoicing for golf days.
No, that's right.
Yeah.
So looking forward to that.
Good.
It is.
Yeah,
it is good.
Yes.
Just especially Ambrose.
15 holes, 4 ball, best ball.
15 holes?
Yeah, 15 holes.
What do you mean 15
Well, they
holes?
reckon it's a perfect amount of golf, the guys that we're playing with. So 18's too many, 15's just the sweet. Sweet amount.
And straight to the bar.
And then straight to the bar, yeah. I think they've got a tab until 10 o'clock, but I've got to get back to work on Saturday morning, so I'm flying out Friday night.
I had one of my great experiences playing golf. Played with the great Rod Marsh.
Oh, yes.
And his son, Dan Marsh, was captain of the Tassie cricket side.
Yeah.
So Dan plays off about scratch. So very, very good player. I'm putrid. And the day I played with these guys, I was putrid times 10. So it was actually embarrassing. I was Rod's partner. So Dan and Howie De Winter, he was the fast bowling coach for Australia at that time. And Dan's got a hole-in-one on 13A at Lost Farm, Barnbougle. Should have put it 10 feet past and just spun it back into the hole, and you go, shit. And he just give it to his old man, because his old man never had a hole-in-one.
Yeah, right.
6 holes later, my partner, Rod Marsh, we're on I think it's the par 4 third at Lost Farm, and he's taken driver and put it in. On a par 4, so didn't he give it to his son about that? And Rod and I were the guest speakers at the Tassie cricket camp that day. Couldn't speak. Could not speak. Poleaxe. But one of the great experiences with the great late Rod Marsh.
There you go. Now, well, I can assure you won't be seeing any of that on Friday in Sydney at the golf day. No, there will not be.
Jared might not be able to talk.
Yeah.
So you'll cover that.
Sorry.
Yes,
Jarrell,
cover that. Yeah.
Well, look, let's just put it this way. I'll think of golf as a normal sport where the highest score wins. That's how I'll play the game. All right, moving right along. Let's get right into the podcast for this week. What's your unpopular opinion from Gather Round?
Well, I'm going off the back of everyone calling for another showdown or Port Adelaide and Adelaide get the extra home game. It's just farcical in my opinion because you're going to get 48,000 to 2 showdowns for the year. They got 48,000 a Thursday night versus Melbourne, 47 against Essendon. Why would you not want those numbers to continue? And we speak about a fixture that's never ever going to be even with the way it's set up unless everyone plays 14 home games a year or something like that. But you're never going to take games away from Melbourne. So I think it's set up really well, and I think people are just looking for an excuse to
bitch and moan.
Yeah, and the Crows didn't even win anyway, so it doesn't...
Well, Melbourne won 2 games in a row in Adelaide.
Right. So I think everyone needs to move on from a third showdown. The third showdown's stupid as well. But
yeah. Also, with respect to Lee Matthews, he went on the whole thing about unfair fixtures.
Yes, that's
and
right.
how there needs to be an extra showdown and stuff, but I seem to recall Brisbane got an extra home game against Melbourne back in the day when they were dominating, and I don't recall Lee complaining about it, saying it was unfair.
And I reckon Melbourne beat us.
Yeah.
Well, Melbourne played a couple of home games at the Gabba.
Yeah, they did.
And so we thought, how good's this? And I reckon we got done.
They did. They did beat you.
Shit.
Well, it was you can't beat Melbourne at home, just a sure bet.
Yeah, no, that wasn't good.
But you're right. The fixture has not been even for over 30 years. The last time that we had a fixture where everyone played each other twice was 1986, and that was the last year of the 12-team VFL until both West Coast and Brisbane came in the following year. Even back then, there was a bit of ground rationalisation, so clubs shed the MCG. Big games, if there was a Carlton-Collingwood game that was meant to be at Princes Park, that got moved to Waverley and stuff to accommodate more crowds. So the AFL VFL fixture, especially these days, it's not a fair schedule, it's a commercial schedule.
Yeah.
It's a schedule that's got television interests, club member interests, venue interests, and that's what happens with ground rationalisation. And you hear people go, oh, this wouldn't happen in the Premier League and stuff. Well, no one plays at their individual home ground anymore. That's just not how it works.
And the thing is as well, when you speak about grand final, it's always at the MCG. It's just, that's where the money is, and that's... Yeah. It favours the clubs to make more money. It favours the players to make more money. Everyone in the game. So the more crowd you can get, and from all reports, it was another amazing weekend. So I don't think Port need to play the Crows in a gather round showdown.
And the showdown is special enough as it is.
That's right.
The showdown is, I would argue, probably the best rivalry in the AFL. I reckon it's a far more vicious rivalry than, say, Collingwood and Carlton is.
Yeah, it's probably on par with Gold Coast and Brisbane.
Oh, the Q Clash. Sorry, the Q. I mean, that's true. Sorry,
it's not.
You two boys get feral in Q Clash week.
Eyes roll back in the head.
Oh, Queensland is a state divided. Once you cross Yatla and Q Clash week, it is on.
Didn't it? They tried to spice it up early. Simon Black, the nicest man in the world, didn't he throw a couple of barbs across? Yeah, that's right.
Jared Brennan and Risher, and then I think they came out and beat us.
I seem to recall in the first one, Guy McKenna talked about how Brisbane wrecked Gold Coast footy back in the day, and that got your old coach Wolsey fired up about how tough the Bears had at Carrara.
Oh, really?
Anyway, or what was the one with Fags and Stewie Dew with the doing a country Q Clash.
That was last year or the year before.
A couple of years ago.
I mean, we've all been down that path where the marketing department say, want you to do this, and then you reflect back and go, God. That's where you need the mentor just to say, look, I wouldn't be whacking that cowboy hat on. No. That's no good, or just to pull up.
I'm with you, Tom, though. I think advocating for fixture fairness and equal home finals and stuff is a lost cause. It's how AFL, that's why AFL gets the biggest crowds. That's why it's one of the most accessible sports going around. It's never been easier to watch a game through television or get a ticket to a game. The calling for that stuff is ridiculous.
And when we're
it's a
talking
lost cause.
home ground advantages, yeah, I mean, let's be clear, the non-Victorian clubs have the home ground advantage.
Correct.
It's not an advantage to win the flag, but it's an advantage to make finals because you've got that clear advantage where, I mean, we all laugh at, Richmond or Collingwood playing 16 or 17 games at the MCG, but they're playing against co-tenants a lot. Yes, to win the flag, it's very important, but it's not a clear home ground advantage.
Speaking of venues, while we're on this subject, I think this week last week David Swallow broke the record of playing at 22 different venues.
Was it 22?
22 venues now, yeah. He broke the record. So were they Norwood?
They were at
Mount
Barker.
That's right. Yeah.
Whereas I think
so they were Norwood last year. They played Freo last year.
These are all the venues that Swallows played at: Adelaide Oval, Blundstone, Cairns, Giant Stadium, Footy Park, Gabba, Cardinia Park, China, MCG, Manuka, Ballarat, Marvel, Norwood, Optus Oval. Well, not Optus Oval, Optus Stadium. He hasn't played at Princess Park. People First Stadium, so obviously Metricon Carrara. Townsville, the SCG, Subiaco, Summit Sports Park. Which ground is that?
Wouldn't have a clue.
But he's played there nonetheless. Darwin, Alice Springs, and Launceston. And he's broke a AFL record there.
Summit Sports Park.
Summit Sports Park.
While you're looking at that, so Pig, do you know how many you racked up?
Of high teens, maybe.
Yeah, well, I was 17.
Oh, that's Mount Barker. Sorry, that's Mount Barker.
Right, yeah.
Sorry, it's like,
that was the last one.
That's actually what Mount Barker's actual name
I
is.
was looking then. There's one that comes up at Springfield Lakes. I was going to say they've never played a.
Yeah. Anyway,
so I was 17. So Carrara, Docklands, Footy Park in Adelaide, Gabba, Cardinia Park, MCG, Moorabbin, and played the last game at Moorabbin.
Yep.
North Hobart Oval, Fitzroy played a couple of years at North Hobart. Princess Park was our home ground. SCG, Stadium Australia, Subiaco, Vic Park.
Played the last game there too.
Yeah, played the last game there. At the Wacker, we used to play there.
Yeah.
Waverley Park, Western Oval, and Windy Hill.
You loved Western Oval as well.
Yeah, that didn't go down.
Yeah,
well.
EJ's
wasn't happy
still
with
angry
me.
at your spirit.
15.
15?
A
Oh,
few
yeah.
less.
That's not bad though. 20.
3 countries though.
3 countries.
Yes,
You're the only.
there you go.
Tommy is the only one that's played for home and away points in 3 different countries.
You've just made that up.
No,
you
he
sure?
is. I reckon he would be.
You just go with it.
Go with it anyway.
Just take it.
3 countries, home and away points.
Yeah.
Only person over 40 10 times.
Correct. Doesn't get better than that, does it?
That's right.
It does not get better than that. All right, moving right along from venue chat. My unpopular opinion is that there's a difference between unpopular opinions and stupid opinions.
Ooh.
And there are some stupid opinions rife at the moment. And I want to list the following.
Right.
Captain's calls during matches. The most ridiculous concept I think I have ever heard in football.
Throw the yellow flag. Does the captain run around with it in his strides all day?
Does he have a
and then
little
just
card?
Throw it up when he wants.
Are we going to have coaches calling for timeout like basketball?
They'd hope so. They'd love to.
Oh,
I
would,
bet
wouldn't
they
they?
would.
Imagine timeout.
Oh, imagine some of the Clarkos and that of the world and Ross Lyon using the timeout. Oh, my God. So how is that feasible? Again, what is unique about Australian rules football is it's a lot of grey area rules.
Yep.
The rules are full of grey area. It is, okay, we get frustrated at the umpires and, geez, they make some clangers. But it's probably one of the hardest sports in the world to officiate because there's so much interpretation. So what happened with Cottrell? Okay, Carlton was gifted. That was a fluke. But to have a captain's call on that would have been more shambolic than the ending that happened with the dissent.
Well, I've heard people call for it in the last 5 minutes of play as well. Like,
what?
yeah.
Yeah.
We're already having 35-minute quarters because the goal umpires and umpires are afraid to make any
you don't want to slow
decisions.
it down anymore.
Oh, no.
Especially when we've been lucky up here because we've been getting the footy on at 6:40 on a Friday night. Now it goes back to 7:40 with daylight savings. It's not going to finish till 11 o'clock.
Let's just have daylight savings year round, I say.
You can't possibly do the review.
No.
We're sneaking further out as it is because the old goal line review has now gone can be touched off the boot to the boundary lines.
Yeah, agree with you on that one. What's your next one?
Okay, if you're calling for multiple gather rounds, I know there was a proposal out there that there should be more than one gather round per year.
Well, the AFL has come out and said that has never been discussed.
Okay, well, anyone who's called for that still needs. And the last but not least, and this gets brought up every year by interstate clubs. and I'm going to say this as Victorian, best of 3 grand finals. So if you're lobbying for captain's call decisions, multiple gather rounds, and best of 3 grand finals, I think you should hand in your licence to follow us, the AFL and Australian rules football, and quite possibly be banished from society in general. And you need re-education because they are stupid. There's unpopular opinions where you think, no, this is the best for the long term, but then there's just stupid opinions. And those 3, that is a trifecta of just blatant stupidity.
Yeah, hard to disagree.
Yeah, I agree with you.
Yeah. I mean,
Spot on.
the Sydney Swans have called for best of 3 grand finals for multiple years. It's like, well, you've lost your past 3 grand finals, so do you really want to do that, do you?
So you say that that's stupid. So the Swans have been pushing that.
The Swans have pushed for
Andrew
it.
Owen's now on the commission.
Yeah.
It'll be pushed.
Good on you, Andrew. Nice trying.
It will be pushed.
As they say in the movie, I'm sure you've seen this movie, Lynchy, Mean Girls. It's fetch. It's not going to happen. You seen Mean Girls?
Yeah,
Yeah, it's a great film.
years ago.
Great film. You should,
Yeah, I don't think so.
If you're in the mood for a funny chick flick,
Oh,
Mean
that's what I
Girls
was looking
be
for.
right up your
Spare time.
right.
She's got no time on his hands as it is, and you expect him to watch chick flicks with that time.
Mean Girls is a great movie.
2GB or whatever it is. A bit of
4BC.
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 Thank you very much.
TUE. John Laws. He's too busy listening to John Laws poems. Lynchy, what do you got? What do you got for us?
I'm going with the obvious one.
Yep.
You talked about not going to be 3 gather rounds. There's only going to be 1 gather round location.
Correct.
Forever and a day. I think it's done.
Yep.
I think the South Australian government have done a fantastic job.
Have they ever?
And like we were talking before, Rocky, that it is a festival-like atmosphere, and it's unique to the size of the city, the fact that Adelaide's footy mad as well. It's grand final week for all clubs. Just the vibe. It's even the last game I did Saturday night. Who was that? Bulldogs Geelong.
Yep.
Now, we don't often see the Mexican wave go around.
Yeah.
It did about 20 laps.
Yeah, right.
But that you've got to keep in context. That was a neutral crowd, mostly a neutral crowd. That was their 8th quarter of footy that they'd watched. They were full. But it was just that happy atmosphere. So there was no aggro in the crowd. You know, everyone sort of was a great buzz around town. So I think they'll lock it in there. And then maybe they do a couple other things. Because I agree, you can't have 3 gather rounds. I reckon when the Tassie team gets up and going with a new stadium, there might be something like gather round to go to Tassie. I reckon that'd be great to launch the new stadium and the new team. But gather round is locked in, and the time of year is perfect. Like the weather down there was great.
Yeah.
So very well done.
They do such a good job. You might remember in the first show of the year, I said that footy sometimes forgets to just share the love and appreciate the love of the game.
Yep.
And that as a sport, we need to remember that we actually have a really good game and we have great fans. And Gather Round is genuinely a celebration of that. It's genuinely like, this is a place to celebrate footy. It's in Adelaide, a footy town. It's not like, we're coming here. Because if you have a Gather Round in Sydney, not only are the people in Sydney not going to give a shit, but Sydney is so spread out. It's not as condensed as Adelaide. It's going to be like, oh no, we're going to make a message to the NRL and we're going to take over. It's like, no, this is a place where it's a footy town. We celebrate footy and we love footy, and it's perfectly okay.
And part of that celebration of the game might be with the opening round concept about the Northern States. Now, whether you have the 4 games in the Northern States and have a couple others elsewhere on the Sunday in Melbourne, which has been discussed. But yes, a different theme for the Northern States.
Yeah, well, I think
Gather Round wouldn't work.
No, it wouldn't. And you are right about the time of the year, because I loved being at Norwood on Sunday. I love the atmosphere. Beautiful day for it. I know you went out to Mount Barker.
No, I was
the year
Norwood.
Previous, but
yeah.
You don't want to be so. I was saying to a friend, suburban grounds are great. I love them, but there are sometimes food. You can't have them every week. It's like KFC. You can't have KFC all the time. But when you do, it's fantastic. So you don't want to be going out to a suburban ground 11 every week and standing, like, the idea of standing out in the rain in Norwood on a freezing cold day in Adelaide. For a gathering round would suck.
Good that.
But a beautiful autumn day, 20 degrees.
10,000 people.
10,000 people. Plus the Norwood Food and Wine Festival going on in the
the
background.
Sunday. That was flying.
Magnificent.
We had Derm doing the pre-game out there. We were struggling to get him back in
Yeah,
for the game. But 10,000 were there at Norwood Oval. Their record capacity was 21,000. Imagine 21,000 shoehorned into there.
Packed in
No,
there.
there was no such thing as public liability back then.
No, exactly.
But it was so good. And yeah, the other thing too, to go back to the atmosphere on Saturday night at Adelaide Oval, you know what it felt like? It felt like being at the cricket. It felt like being at one-day cricket. It was like the last quarter, because I only went to the second game.
Yeah.
But yeah, the last quarter, like it was like people doing the Mexican wave and the hill. They were selling full-strength beer there, by the way, as well.
And cans as well.
And cans. So it was.
They don't
it
mess
was
around in that.
it was straight, and the beer in the cups are imperial pint size and actually cheaper than the MCG. So we're getting to stadium beer prices. This is the relatable stuff
chat.
to our punters.
Now, very
But
relatable.
the atmosphere was just wild and fun, and people out the back having fun. It's like the test match or the races or.
Well, speaking of the test match,
Yeah.
I think you guys pointed it out to me last year because I'm not exactly over social media. That old mate that mocked up the Wakeland Lynch fight on the hill.
Yeah, they were back.
Yeah, they caught up with me.
They got you?
I saw them. I caught up with them in Rundle Mall.
Yeah, they were flying. They were very happy with their work.
Yeah,
Good areas.
that's
Very
that's
good.
the boys from the 100K podcast.
Oh, is it? Yeah,
Yes,
did a
but-
great job.
Yes, no, it's funny you mentioned because I was walking through Rundle Mall on Friday morning and I saw them filming a Lynchy Wakes.
Again?
Yeah, they were doing a bit of around Adelaide. But what was hilarious
Need
was
royalties.
the security guard near the big blow-up footy tried to break it up and thought it was real.
No, they're doing a good job, the boys. I didn't know they backed over it again, though.
Oh, when you're on a good thing, Lynchy,
It's like
Ride it all the
gather
way
around.
to
just
the-
gather around.
Ride it all the way to the beach.
You just again, you can do a Tom Rocklfif and just double invoice them and just send them a commission for.
Well, I did have a chat to him. There was no invoice, though.
no, just a chat.
Yeah, just give him back to the game. That's what I was doing.
Yeah, good on you.
Oh, yeah.
Good on you. Oh, all right. Well, I think we've had a good little chat to start
Yes.
off. But I think what punters want to know is how they can back a few winners on the weekend. How did you go? No, you were out in the first leg.
2 out of 4.
Were you out in the
I
first
think.
leg this week?
Yeah, we had Port Adelaide, Essendon, any team under 24.5, so that was blown away
Yes.
on Friday night.
No, the second quarter, Essendon only played for one quarter there on Friday night. But you'll go again.
We'll go again.
All right. Here's Ryan and Rocky for the Snapshot.
All the betting trends you need to know from the world of footy. This is the Snapshot.
It is time to talk some betting and time to talk some numbers. We've had just over a month of footy, and as it stands, the premiership market tells us all we need to know. The Giants are still your flag favourites at $5, followed closely by the Swans at $6. D's and Blues at $7, Tommy, and Collingwood, who are back into $9 on the back of a couple of wins. 4 teams remain winless: Hawthorn, North, West Coast, and the Adelaide Crows. How did you see gather round last week, mate?
Yeah, good weekend of footy. I think nearly every favourite won. So I think there would have been a lot of happy punters out there on the weekend. But I think it's great success down there. They do it so well. The venues are close, the Norwood Festival or whatever. But the footy on field was impressive as well. Again, the Adelaide Crows, where they're at, is concerning. Brisbane bounced back as you'd expect. Port Adelaide, good win as well. So all as we expected, I think.
Yeah, it did seem like a lot of the favourites prevailed for the punters. The team you just mentioned there, Adelaide, is the one I'm pretty keen to get stuck into this week. Still winless, as I said, and it doesn't get any easier for Matthew Nicks. The Crows take on the Blues on Saturday afternoon at Marvel. We all know about Adelaide's woes on the road. They only won 3 games away from home last year. Haven't won at Marvel since they beat the Hawks way back in 2021. Look, big problems all over the ground for Matthew Nicks. The Crows rank 17th in points, 16th in tackles, and it just suggests that their pressure isn't there. Plenty of problems through the midfield trying to get the ball forward. And side by side, the Blues are averaging nearly 7 more scoring shots compared to Adelaide. Rocky, give us your thoughts on Adelaide, and do you think Carlton 40 plus is one of the best bets of the round?
Yeah, I think the numbers would suggest that. They obviously got their terrible road record, and to not win at Marvel, to beat Hawthorn in 2021 is a long time ago. I know they don't play a lot of games there, but still, they're concerning me because of their better players are just out of touch at the moment. We've seen Tex, he's obviously got back issues.
Yep.
and he's struggling a little bit, but he's dominated that forward line for so long. It's about time someone stood up and took that off his hands. Jordan Dawson's probably a little bit down on his output, Laird as well. So the concerning one, though, for me is they pick and choose a little bit for me at the moment, the Adelaide Crows, when they want to have a crack and when they don't. It feels like the game gets away from them. And then they click into gear. A guy, and Rochelle is one that he's just out of touch, and then he'll spark for 10 minutes, look like he'll turn the game, but then we don't see him again for the rest of the game. So they need to be a lot more consistent. They've spoken about not changing too much what they've done. They played up here round 1, I think, against the Gold Coast Suns in Queensland, and said that they kept their routine almost exactly the same as what they'd previously done. So I don't think they've learned any lessons, and it's so hard to get a gauge on them. 0-5, they're no chance to play finals. I don't think they're any chance now anyway. I think about the pre-season, we both had them improving and going into the 8. But, they've been the biggest disappointment of the season so far.
So you're putting a pen through them in terms of finals? Yeah,
I think so. Yeah, it's going to be too hard for them. Where they are now, you've still got the teams that sit outside the 8 at the moment. The 8 looks like there's some really good teams up there. The teams that sit outside Gold Coast, St Kilda, Collingwood, Brisbane, you'd expect maybe 2 of them to go in. So they're going to have to leapfrog potentially 6 or 7 teams to get in the finals, and I just can't see them doing that.
It's going to be a very tough run for the Crows. If you had to put your coaching hat on, though, what would you change? Would you try to put Rankin further forward to get Rochelle involved more? What would the outlook be?
Yeah, I'd try something different. I'd certainly have Rochelle and Rankin maybe swapping out of the goal square and on ball. Just continue to flip-flop that. It gives a different dynamic through the midfield. We know that they're being labelled as vanilla and all the same sort of players, so it gives it a different dimension through there. Their defence is certainly under the pump, and it's going to be under the pump this weekend against Carlton. You talk about how good their ball movement is at the moment and also their scoring power. There's just so many holes in that team at the moment, and it's going to be a longer rebuild than what the Adelaide Crows want.
It feels like their window was right now to sneak into the 8 and potentially push for a top 4 spot and maybe play for a flag, but that window's already closing very quickly. We'll move on, though. We've got a couple of milestones worth watching this weekend. The first is Nick Larkey, who's looking for his 200th goal. He's sitting one shy at 199. Pretty quiet on the goal sheet last week against the Brisbane Lions, but North take on Geelong at the Cattery this week. He kicked 2 against the Cats on 3 occasions. But look, let's quickly talk about North. Getting the ball inside 50 has been very tough for them, which you'd have to expect from a young side. The Roos ranked bottom in the league, averaging just over 46 entries a game. Last year, Larkey only saw 3 or 4 inside 50 targets against the Cats in round 17, and that was sort of the case again last week against Brisbane. Firstly, how do they get North? How does North get Larkey involved more in terms of scoring?
Near impossible, I think. Unfortunately for him, he's the main man inside 50, and opposition clubs are always going to put their best players to him, and then potentially the second and third drop off. So I just see this week Stewart sitting in the hole and just dominating intercept marks again. I think he will get the 200. I think he'll at least kick one, but he's in for another tough afternoon or night down there, I think, against Geelong. They're just such a classy outfit, the Cats. $1.03, no value at all whatsoever in that game. But I just think that Larkey's the main target for North Melbourne, and they'll just cover that continually. They defend the ground so well, so it's going to be a tough afternoon for him.
I'd say you'd be getting a pretty short price for Larkey to kick his 200th. We're recording this before the player markets come out, but I reckon you'd be getting nothing less than about $1.50. The other milestone coming up is Lachie Neale. He's playing his 250th game on Thursday night against Melbourne. We all know about Brisbane's track record at the MCG. Big grudge match between 2 pretty big modern-day rivals now. Goes without saying that Lachie is a pretty big game player. We saw him come out against Collingwood in his 200th game a couple of years ago on Easter Thursday, had 33 touches and a goal that night. He's averaged close to 29 touches during his career against the D's, but was held a little bit on the quiet side when they met last season. Are you comfortable backing Lachie to have 30-plus touches in this one?
Yeah, I think so, and I think he's still outside the odds in the Brownlow market because, again, I don't see a lot of players taking votes off him at Brisbane. No, Heaney started really well. $17, we know he missed that game, but he's been really impressive the last couple of weeks. I'd say he probably gets 5 votes. You'd imagine he gets 3 on the weekend.
Oh, easily, yeah.
And then maybe 2 against Collingwood the week before he was was outstanding. He's clearly Brisbane's best player that game, whether he can pinch a couple, maybe 3 in that game as well. So I think he's still over the value in the Brownlow market. I think he'll be up and about for the game, and there's no doubt Brisbane want to make a statement. They need to get their season going. They beat North Melbourne on the weekend, which isn't anything to write home about, is it? So an opportunity on a 6-day turnaround to take on Melbourne at the MCG. Great challenge for them. Lockie Neal's 250th, and he could potentially win another Brownlow medal.
It does seem like that. The other one worth watching just in terms of the Brownlow is Rosie. I think you're getting about $17 right now. It seems like it's a 2-horse race between him and Heaney after the first 4 rounds.
Ryan and Rocky are cooking up another multi. Surely it gets up this week.
Looking ahead, though, to our multi, we didn't go close last week. I got us off to a pretty poor start. I backed either team at 24.5 points or less between Port Adelaide and the Bombers. Port absolutely blew the doors off Essendon. Bombers, such a tough team to get a read on. Only 6 goals on the night. Quarter
time, we're all over. I thought this is going to be a cracking contest, and Port Adelaide just blew them away. Yeah, Essendon, it's hard to get a read on them again. The first half, the week before against St Kilda, disappointing. Come back, win that game of footy, and then on the weekend, they were there for the first quarter, and that was it.
Yeah, Bombers might be on the no-bet list, I think. I came good on Saturday. I backed Carlton to win versus Fremantle. Very controversial finish. I'm sure we'll talk plenty about that. And then you came good again in the player markets. Andrew Brayshaw, 30-plus disposals, absolutely flying. He's got to be in the Brownlow conversation too.
Yeah, dominated, didn't he? And Sarong, we spoke about that he might get more attention, and that's the way it panned out in the end. So they may take too many votes off each other, but then we went back to the well with Bont, and we should have just taken him 30-plus. He dominated, but just couldn't get that second goal for us.
Had his opportunities. Yeah, I think he only kicked 1 goal, in the end. This week, though, we're going to mix things up. You've gone a couple of different players. You're leading us off in Port Adelaide versus Freo.
Yeah, we're going to wait until Saturday night to make sure that we're still alive before the weekend for the punters out there. I'm going to take Charlie Dixon, 2+ goals against Fremantle. I think they're a little bit short in defence. I think Charlie will get his opportunity and kick 2 in that game. And the other game on Saturday night, I'm going to take Carl Amon, 25+. I think he's finding plenty of the footy, and he will do that against the Gold Coast Suns.
Couple of good value bets there from you, Rocky. I'm sticking with the same game. I'm taking the Gold Coast Suns 1-39. We know they're very tough to beat at home, and they were arguably... there was a lot to like about them last week against GWS. Hawks were really good in that final term against Collingwood. This could be a cracking game. And then finally, I know we were a bit in disagreement about this one.
You sure you want to do this?
I'm willing to do it. You've got to be brave in these bets. I'm taking West Coast to cover against Richmond. I thought the Eagles, they led the Swans at halftime last week. We saw plenty from Harley Reid. Yo looks really good as well. Really tough spot too for Richmond coming from Adelaide to Perth. So I just think the travel factor there is interesting, and this is the shortest line we've seen on West Coast for a while, so plus 20.5. I'm taking West Coast to at least make this a contest. So just to recap, we've got Charlie Dixon to kick 2+ goals, Carl Amon 25+ disposals, the Suns 1-39, and West Coast to cover. We're getting $11.54 there, Rocky.
Juicy again. I think we're due to get another one up, aren't we?
If we get another one of these up, we might just call it all off. We'll quit while we're ahead. Great edition of the Snapshot, mates. Thank you for joining us, and hopefully we get some winners home.
Good on you, Ryan.
You're listening to Ned's AFL Unpopular Opinions.
This is Ned's Unpopular Opinions AFL style podcast. Dylan Leach, Alistair Lynch, and Tom Rocklfif. Thank you to Ryan for another edition of the Snapshot. Absolutely going gangbusters on YouTube. You can catch that in full there. The YouTube punters love it.
Yes,
loving
all over it. Well, that's what happens when you land $16 multi.
He lands, people. Everyone just wants a piece of that. And, whoa, what's going on there? He's got his own celebration music there. That's what happens. It's a bit of flex.
The highlight reel.
I was going into the article to talk about ball magnets.
So, so this week we want to do a little focus on a type of player that's close to Rocky's heart, and it's the ball magnets. And Tom, of course, you were 10 times over 40 disposals.
10-timer, yeah.
10-time over disposal. And someone was telling me that Scott Pendlebury is actually about 20-odd disposals away from getting to 10,000 in his career, which I don't think we'll be running on the ground for when he does it, but...
No, I wouldn't have thought.
No.
Jeez, that's a lot of
that's a lot of touches of the pill.
Yeah. A lot of sharing.
But I can't help but notice, Tom, and this happened a fair bit in your career, you'll recall, and particularly in the cases of Essendon players. So Zach Merritt and Nick Martin, they're getting 30 plus a week, getting plenty of the pill, and then people are like, well, what are they doing with it? What's the point? Some of these touches are absolutely useless. And to be blunt, there was criticism of you in your career from pundits saying, well,
getting too much nut.
Yeah, there was people like Tom Rocklfif, but I've just do a Google search with like Tom Rocklfif gets it, but what's he do with it kind of thing. So people are sort of attacking the ball magnets because, they don't see them do heaps of highlights, but they do the grunt work. So Tom, I want you to go in defence of the ball magnets, and also the other thing, what we want to keep an eye out this year, do you think we'll get another player that gets to the 50, the half century? So I'll let you talk about the ball magnets first.
Yeah, well, it's been done 10 times. I didn't realise it had been done so often, the 50 plus. Tom Mitchell's obviously got the record with 54, Greg Williams 53. Tom Mitchell's in there a few times. But what can often happen, and what I was criticised for, you've had it 40 times, but you had 6 score involvements. Sometimes we had nothing up forward to go to. So
I see you blame the ball.
No, I'm not saying that. But I'm just saying that people don't see, like, you go to a contest and you might get a handball in that and win a clearance, but then nothing happens from it, or you get caught in transition. So I think I was okay with my balance of inside outside. But yeah, sometimes people can be critical. I think what particularly Martin at the moment is being criticised for is taking the kick-ins, taking one step out of the goal square and getting the possession that way. But for anyone to touch at 30 plus, it's normally a pretty good game. It's not easy to go out there and play AFL footy at the best of times, let alone have it numerous times. But I think sometimes it can be overshadowed. And if you're not a flary, like a Tom Mitchell was being criticised in the past for not doing much with it. I think Buckley was the one that said, we let him go and he had 54 or whatever. But what he does for the team is just as important than the run and carry. He can't run and carry and kick the ball. He's not a line breaker, but what he does is set up those line breakers. He sets up the players around him to give him the ball to be able to run and carry. So unfortunately at times he might not have that support around him. So he's still winning the footy. So I don't know what they want him to do with it. If he's winning the footy in the contest, just let it go, drop it. Like, he's still trying to set up his teammates. Unfortunately, for whatever reason, if you're a bottom team, you just can't get the flow going.
Did you have one player that you work with? Like, as you said, you spent most of the time on the inside. I mean, if you're a half smart outside operator, you'd be sitting off your left shoulder all day. Did you have someone that sort of was it first receiver?
I always loved having like Pierce Hanley around the contest because he was that guy for us, particularly at Brisbane, just as a halfback or when he started to go through the midfield. You always tried to look to him because he was the one that could run and carry, take a couple of bounces and kick it 55 plus. So he was one that I tried to have always sort of sitting there ready to go.
You see players, and you mentioned Tom Mitchell. The Bulldogs got rolled on the weekend, but you couldn't have Libba or Bont couldn't play any better. Libba, what do you have? 19 clearances.
Libba was
so 19 clearances. Yeah. So that's where you think, you can't blame him, but who's getting the ball on the outside? And I think that's where the Dogs struggle to get the ball out into space. First hands, no worries. They do it almost every week. But Geelong put enough pressure on so they couldn't get to the outside and get it forward. So, it's a bit harsh to blame the likes of the ball pigs.
And that's the same thing that would happen with a Tom Mitchell, for instance. You can't necessarily stop him getting his hands on the footy. It's a bit like Matt Rowell at the contest. But what you can stop is that next one. Yeah. And Geelong did it so well. Libba gets a footy, goes to give it to his receiver, but Geelong's defence, they know that they can't stop Libba inside the contest, but they can stop the impact of his handball that leads to the metres gained off that. So coaches are very smart, but to go after someone for touching it too many times, I think is a bit farcical.
Well, what else are you meant to do?
Well, you would have, because obviously in your day you didn't get a kick for the kick-outs or a stat for the kick-outs. Has that cheapened some of the numbers for you? Are you disappointed to see that? You want that stat removed?
Not really. Like, I think you still got to have a pretty good game. Like, unless you end up with 20 kick-ins or something like that, which I don't think we've ever seen, have we? I think Martin had a few in that game where I don't think so. I think if you're still touching it, and just talking about like the one game, the one I had 48 in, it was just wrong, some of the possessions I got, because I'd be 4 deep in a contest at a stoppage and it somehow bounced past everyone. It was one of those days where everything just went right. And every sportsman, it doesn't matter what level, you've always had that one day where you just think, nothing
purple patch.
can go wrong here.
We had, I remember we played West Coast Eagles at Subiaco. Now, you wouldn't appreciate Paul Roos as a centre half back because you're a bit young. Paul Roos was one of the great accumulators of the ball, and he played centre half back this day. He had 42 from centre half back.
And those days in that era, if you were getting
30 was a lot.
30 was considered whoa, what have you done?
42.
But I mean, I was just looking up here. I seem to recall that. What about when you played for Port Magpies and you got 57 disposals one day? What was it? I'm just looking here. Tom Rocklfif had a whopping 57 disposals, 30 handballs, 27 kicks, 14 clearances, 12 tackles and 8 inside
12
50s.
tackles?
8 inside 50s against North Adelaide. Surely
it was flooding.
The Magpies won that game, obviously.
Yeah, we won that game.
I was about to say, if you had lost that game...
You sure you had 12 tackles?
Oh, it was wet. It was just wet. Like it was. There was a lot of kicks off the ground, but we had Paddy Ryder in the ruck that day, so tapping everything to me. And CMP Pepper was playing, Westhoff was playing. Like we had a really good Magpies.
What happened that week before? That must have been some proper drops to the team.
I was coming back from injury. I'd had 3 or 4 weeks off, and we lost to the Western Bulldogs. The Bulldogs kicked 8 or 9, so I went from that game, and I was first emergency. I had to drive straight to Adelaide Oval, so I don't know how I would have played if I had to back it.
No good.
If someone went down in the warm-up.
Des Headland, because the Bears players, Lions players it would have been, got drafted out to other clubs, I think, at that stage. Anyway, in the twos, he had 51 and kicked 5 from the guts. What a ball.
Well, I think Westhoff in that game had 57. I think he had 40 and kicked 4 or something as well. Like it was just crazy.
So go back to your earlier point, Tom. So you mentioned like when you were playing at Brisbane, a lot of the criticism came from there. But then when you moved to Port Adelaide and you were playing with the likes of Butters and Rosie, who are very much in the conversation about winning a Brownlow this year. I mean, I'm big on how Connor Rosie's going. What's the difference like for you in that sort of role when you're playing with, better skilled players? With no disrespect to your former teammates.
No, well, it's your role within the team. So you see guys still in that Port Adelaide midfield that allow Butters and Rosie to go and do what they do. Willem Drew is a perfect example. He's the defensive mid. He sets up defensively all the time, allows those guys to go to work. Ollie Wines as well. He's the first hands player that feeds it to those guys to use their legs to get out because they're so fast and agile and move so well. So everyone's still got your role within that team, and it's just about getting the balance right. So for me, Ollie Wines, probably everyone's saying his output hasn't been as good, but he's allowed those other guys to flourish around him and either use the first hands or allow them to get to work.
So ball magnets, go easy on them.
Ball magnets are a big part of the game, and it's time to back off.
Yeah, back off.
Back off.
Back off the pigs.
Back off the pigs. Hey, there's plenty of Supercoach nerds and fantasy nerds who will, go full defence of them.
No, that's right.
They'll protect you anytime.
Yeah, they should too.
Yeah.
Exactly.
He criticise you. They go, you don't want to deal with Supercoach boffins.
No, you don't.
No, it's good. And do you think we'll get a 50-gamer? Not a 50-game, a game.
I think it'll definitely happen again. Well, Nick Dacos can rack them up as quick as anyone.
Could?
Nick Martin can do it. There's, Sarong.
Yeah.
Like it'll happen. Lockie Neal still Lockie Neal, I think, still an outsider for the Brownlow again. Like his last 2 weeks, he's probably got 5 votes.
Yeah. It is only round 5, so we need to.
But he always polls well.
He does poll well. Yes,
he's missed the one game, but he's a chance to have 50 as well. He's had 50 before, so I think it'll happen again.
What do you think on the big numbers? And you probably answered it before, but what about the value of taggers? Sometimes you allow people to accumulate because they're not hurting you, but should you be tagging? Should teams tag?
Yeah, I think so. Particularly if, I would run with a Bontempelli every week. I wouldn't allow him because he's the one that can set up the game. I think there's still a place for him. Like, you think back to yesteryear, Kane Corns going after Simon Black. That was important for them to win premiership. Like, Kane did it as good as anyone. There's other guys in the competition that have done it well. I think Willem Drew does it really well at Port Adelaide, plays that defensive role. There's other guys in competition. There's still a spot for a tagger.
Yeah. No, there's definitely still a spot for a tagger. All right, we're going to wrap up now here on Ned's AFL Unpopular Opinions. Back off, ball magnets. Tom Rocklfif has spoken. You heard from the pig. Time to wrap up here on on Neds AFL Unpopular Opinions. You got Lynchy, you got Rocky, you got myself, Dylan, and of course Ryan had the Snapshot. We're heading into, what round is it? I've lost. Where are we?
5.
Round 5, is it?
Or let's just call it week 6.
Week 6, round 5.
Collingwood and Sydney bye.
Collingwood and Sydney have the bye. Richmond still hasn't had a bye yet, but okay. Let's. What are we looking forward to this weekend? I'm just, to be honest, after the Easter and to gather round, I actually appreciate a couple of days off.
Well, we've only got a couple of days because match of the round is at the MCG Thursday night, which is a monstrous game for Brisbane.
Yes, absolutely. Well, I'm going to ask you two, what did you make of the Lions' performance on Friday? They did as I mentioned in the opener, they did everything that they needed to do.
They did what they had to do.
Yeah,
there was nothing.
It was a tough watch. That game.
There was nothing. There was nothing that they could have really achieved outside. Absolutely belting an under-resourced young North Melbourne. 70 points is 70 points, but no, they did what they had to do.
Yeah.
I think Danaher was he was reasonable. I didn't mind, like, Eric Hipwood tried hard. A couple of his marks were against halfback flankers, so nothing to write home. I thought he worked his way into the game, okay, but yeah.
Joe did what he needed to do.
Yeah, nine shots a goal. You got to be happy with that. Yeah. But they just tick that box and get on.
I would have Melbourne as equal premiership favourites with GWS right now. Brisbane win this, they're very much back in town.
Oh,
absolutely,
enormously so. Yeah. This is a huge
even if Brisbane gets close.
Nah, Brisbane
they need to win.
Brisbane have to win. Yeah, we've gone past the honourable losses are gone now.
Yeah,
especially when you drop a couple of home games. So, no, huge game and massive task for Brisbane.
No, I'm really looking forward to that one on Thursday night. What are you looking forward to?
Yeah, that one as well. But probably Saturday afternoon, Carlton versus the Adelaide Crows, because I was bullish on the Adelaide Crows to start the season.
A lot of people were,
and they've been horrible. I think they pick and choose too much, so they need to pack their effort. Is probably the first thing that they need to put in their kit bag Saturday afternoon. If they bring the effort, they'll be in that game. But huge ask to beat Carlton there. They haven't won at Marvel, as we touched on in the Snapshot, since 2021 when they beat Hawthorn. They're the Adelaide Crows. Their defence is undermanned, but they've just got to pack effort. If they go 0-5, the knives will be out for Matty Nix in the advertiser.
On the advertiser, and the talk back on 5AA would be intriguing. Or Triple M Adelaide, Triple M Adelaide on Dead Set Legends.
They don't do a lot of talk back.
No, Triple M does not do talk. Triple M does talking to, but not talk back.
That's right. Lecturing. But that's Tex Walker's form, and he's been so good the last few years. Just the fact that he hasn't started that well leaves a gaping hole.
Yeah, so, their kids coming through. They haven't.
That's the
thing.
They haven't
taken steps.
Still reliant on their experienced players.
And Tex, he could barely move. We did radio with him maybe before round 1, and he could barely move with his back. So I think he's still carrying that. Right. And if he's not at his best, then there's no one else there for him.
No.
Yeah, I just can't see Carlton losing a game for the rest of the year. They just keep finding ways to win, don't they? It's just, no matter what the circumstances are, Carlton will just bloody win.
You'll be looking forward to the blockbuster on Sunday afternoon.
West Coast Richmond at Optus Stadium. That's a danger game potentially. West Coast were actually not too bad last week, and Richmond has an honourable loss every week bar the Swans game. So I'd keep half an eye on West Coast. That could be one they could snatch, actually.
They'll win a game this year.
Yeah, of course they won a game this year. They won games last year and they were awful.
Oh, yeah. Harley Reid, how good's he?
Amazing. And look at him tugging the jumper as well. Tugging that West Coast navy blue jumper, I reckon is the best one they've ever had.
It's a nice jumper,
that is
wasn't
a
it?
nice jumper. Not quite the orange ochre that they had back in the day, but him tugging the jumper. So I think he likes West Coast, and I think a certain colleague of mine, McClure, might need to get over himself about he's still going on about that. Goodness me. All right. Tom, before we wrap up, do you care to recap the multi?
Yes, recap the multi. We're going to leave ourselves until Saturday night. So we're going to let those
we're still
early
going to be
games.
alive
We're going to
3
be
days.
alive. Yes.
Brilliant.
Charlie Dixon kicked 2+ against Fremantle. I think they're a little bit undermanned. So we're going to go there first, and then we're going to go up to the Gold Coast for a same game. Carl Amon 25+ in that game, and Gold Coast to win by 1-39.
So we've got 2 games on at the same time, so that'll be our multi will be all over the shop.
interesting
job.
watch.
Yeah,
And then
multiple screens.
speaking of West Coast, Ryan, I'm not sure about this, but he's thrown in West Coast at the line. So
What's the line?
20.5 start against Richmond. So bundle that all up and you get $11.54. So it's juicy, but I'm a bit nervous about the West Coast leg.
Yeah.
Well, Richmond were impressive.
We were.
And then they stopped and let St Kilda back in.
We were also
but
missing our forwards and some tools, but yeah.
throwing West Coast in a multi any time is dangerous, I would have thought.
Well, for the sake of the show, I hope it gets up.
So do I.
And Richmond has a 3-goal win, 18 points, and then the multi still gets up.
That's right.
So
You're happy.
a win's a win.
Yeah.
A win's a win. All right, this has been Ned's Unpopular Opinions AFL style for another week. My name's Dylan. Thank you, Lynchy.
Thank you, Dill.
Thank you, Rock.
Thank you, Dill.
See
See you
on the golf-
Friday.
Yeah, see you on the golf course.
Of course. On a hole-in-one.
Yep.
On a couple of special moments.
Oh, don't worry. Don't worry. It'll be a mixture of Happy Gilmore meets Caddyshack all at once there on Friday. Stay tuned to the Neds socials. There's plenty of content coming up. We've got another themed round coming up this week. It's a very special one too. Corporate round. So celebrating the true heroes of the game.
Yes.
This week. So look forward to that. If you do like the podcast, make sure you like and subscribe, and we'll catch you next week.
Thanks for listening to Ned's AFL Unpopular Opinions. Enjoyed the podcasts? Remember to like and subscribe wherever you get your podcasts.
What's gambling really costing you? For free and confidential support, visit gamblinghelponline.org.au.